welcome to the weekly CWE Webcast. I'm Hotshot Danny Duggan. I'm joined by Garbage Man Rob, the Mastermind Kevin Cannon, and our special guest this week, joining us in the Brickhouse Closet, former CWE champion, 20-year veteran of the sport, Matt Fairlane. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. I call myself more of a 20-year student.
20 years in the wrestling business, like for a local wrestler, is like 40 if you talk to them.
Yeah, but the amount of matches I actually had, probably you'll have in 6 months. I'm honest about it though.
So you're not one of those guys that's, takes 2 years off and counts it as 6 years in?
No. I started in 96. Wouldn't really say I started. I kind of messing around. Finally got trained in 98 by Tony. Started wrestling from 98 till about 2004. Took about 6 months off, came back 2005, quit again, came back 2008, wrestled from 2008 till, really 2013, and then the odd match here and there.
So you've literally been through like multiple generations of local wrestling and worked with everyone who's come through the territory, so I'm really excited to get to that later in the program and talk about that career and get your perspective coming into the business the way you did, because the way you came into the business is quite common now, but it wasn't back then, so I'm actually really interested to kind of get your perspective and just how the business was a little more guarded back then with the old guard veterans and coming into the business the way you did. So I'm really excited to chat about that. We're going to talk about some WWE before we get to that, and this is something that just came through before we hit the record button. Could be groundbreaking and major shift in the business. Over 30 wrestlers, I think close to 50, and I'll read the list off here shortly, have filed a class action lawsuit against WWE, citing, concussions, brain damage from their time working for the company. We've seen this with the NFL, where a class action lawsuit was filed, and something like $750 million was paid out to thousands of players.
Yeah, one lump sum kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, and now wrestlers are trying to do the exact same thing, and that was just announced today. And I think the biggest shocker to me was seeing some of the names on this list, because these are some guys, some of them that had long tenures with the company, that were highly featured performers that you wouldn't expect to kind of burn that bridge with WWE. And then there's some guys on that list that didn't wrestle there very long at all and kind of had a cup of coffee, and it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. I'm going to pull up this list here just so we can read it for the viewer at home. The list includes Road Warrior Animal, Jimmy Snuka, Paul Orndorff, Chavo Guerrero Sr., Chavo Guerrero Jr., Brian Clark, who's also Adam Bomb, Ahmed Johnson, Kamala, Dave Hebner, Earl Hebner, King Kong Bundy, Ken Patera, Sabu, Axe, Smash, the Berserker, the Warlord, my favorite, the Barbarian, Johnny the Bull, Jim Brunzell, Shane Douglas, Muhammad Hassan, Henry Godwin, Mark Jindrak, Marty Jannetty, John Heidenreich, Mantar, One Man Gang, Susan Green, Angelo Mosca, that's how far back this is going, Jim Powers, Mike Enos, Butch Reed,
one of the Beverly Brothers, right?
Yes, sir. Jazz, Rodney Mack, Sylvain Grenier, Omar Atlas, Don Leo Heaton, Princess Victoria, Judy Martin, really going back, Axel Rotten through his estate, Bobby Billiard, Larry the Crippler Oliver, Rex King, who was Timothy Smith, I think that was part of Well Done, if I'm not mistaken. Tracy Smothers, Black Bart, Slick, JJ Funk, Lou Marconi, Rod Price, Donald Driggers, Outlaw Ron Bass, and Boris Zukov. So that is a long list, and that is spanning 30 plus years when you think of some of those names on there. What's really interesting to me is some of these names on this list, like I mentioned, had very, very short runs with the company. Like Mantar maybe wrestled for the company for a year at most.
At most, yeah.
At most, you got that.
And like I was saying off the air, Mantar was in that generation where every 9 out of 10 TV matches were jobber squash matches. He wasn't getting bumped on his head in those. He was fucking... Did Slick ever take a bump? I think these guys are grasping at straws.
And there's guys like on here like Slick, who I'm sure probably took bumps from baby faces.
Sure, yeah, Favorite or something like that, but nothing head injury causing.
2 major, yeah.
Yeah,
So I
so
would imagine.
The other question I have is like, half these guys, Paul Orndorff had a longer career in WCW than WWE. Is it because WWE owns all these old companies now under their name?
which they wouldn't be
They
responsible
wouldn't be
for.
accountable. That would be
So-
that would definitely be in the contract
Yeah.
upon purchase. Even like Road Warrior Animal, the Road Warrior's career in WWE is a drop of piss in the ocean compared to how much they spent with AWA and NWA
Or
in
Japan.
Japan. Yeah, it's really. And that can be said for pretty much everyone on that list, except for maybe some of the really way back ones when. And something that really didn't occur to me too is the big difference between this and the NFL. When you are an NFL player, you're an employee of that team, you're an employee of the league, you're a representative of the league, so on and so forth. That's the way you're contracted, right? When you are a WWE wrestler from pretty much the 90s on, they've been really clear that you are an independent contractor. You're not an employee of the company. You're being contracted out. It's like hiring a painter to come paint your house. That guy's not your employee. You're a guy. You hired him to come do this for you, kind
Now,
of.
I'm not
thing,
familiar with the legalities, but for example, if you were providing that painter a work environment where he was inhaling something and he became sick, are you then responsible for providing an unsafe work environment for that painter?
There'd be gray areas depending on the knowledge of the risk, and I think that's what they're getting at here. Is they say
Yeah.
there was no knowledge of the risk.
And the other thing too is that half these guys worked Monday through Friday and wrestled on weekends. So a lot of the question, like I said off the air, was, wrestling wasn't their only job. It wasn't the only place that they're going to get money from. Like half these guys probably traveled up and down the roads like everybody else. You take your first bump, you realize this shit's going to hurt. Right away, that you're falling, you're gonna get hurt.
I think we could all, minus Rob, who's never taken a bump, can, think back to that first time we took a back bump and you had that come to Jesus moment where you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
It's not natural for your body to do that. It's not natural to throw your body back and absorb impact. And even if you, soak in the knowledge they teach you before taking that first bump, 9 times out of 10, you're hitting your head, over and over and over as you learn to do it and protect yourself.
But we said the same thing that I guaranteed every one of these guys said. Fuck it, I want to do this. I don't give a fuck.
Right there.
This is what I want.
Right.
There, that's
You know damn well that's.
Fuck it.
Yeah.
I want to do this.
Exactly.
So I'm very curious to see how it unfolds. I don't want to downplay
No.
the seriousness of anybody's injuries because I have, tons of them, and you've had tons. We all have. So it is serious, and if people have been hurt, there is some truth to it, but it just seems bizarre to me. Like if you go and play in the NFL, they're the only show in town.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You go through college, you play in the NFL. A lot of these guys, like you mentioned, had such long runs for various companies. How can WWE be placed at fault for a large sum of money when they've spent 1 year here and 15 years wrestling on the independents or 20 years wrestling here? It's really tough to pinpoint WWE as the bad guy and say they're responsible for the injuries that were had.
And on that list, who the fuck is Ahmed Johnson to sue anyone for hurting him? He's fucking give his head a shake. Maybe he's got a legit case if he thinks fucking. Maybe legitimately is brain damaged if he thinks that he's in the right, where he can't be sued back by about 15 other fucking workers who cause lifelong injuries too.
Yeah. So I would imagine some of the case would be on behalf of those filing against WWE would be that WWE withheld information that they knew it was dangerous for them to be performing at this level or to perform certain things, and they asked them to do it anyways, and as a result they got hurt. I imagine that's going to be a part of the claim. So how much then falls in the performer's hands to say, I was hurt, I don't want to wrestle, but then there's going to be that statement like, oh, I knew if I took time off, I'd lose my spot, I'd lose money, I'm not an employee, I am an independent contractor, I only get paid if I wrestled, so I felt I was pressured to wrestle to make a living for myself.
I think they're fucked. That's on them then. They still made that conscious decision. You're an adult. You made that choice to keep wrestling through injury because you didn't want to seek employment elsewhere, was essentially what it boiled down to. And that's how, they don't be phrasing it that way, but that's what they're saying. I didn't want to seek employment elsewhere. Okay, well, you made that choice then. I thought I ran the risk of having to find another job somewhere else. I didn't want to go look for another job. I wanted to stay there, so I worked through my injury. Okay, well, nobody held a gun to your head. That's what you did. And further to the point, kind of, straight from what we're talking about, I guarantee that the lawyer representing this group is basically a glorified ambulance chase, one of the ones you see on the fucking commercials on Fox. Yeah. The lawyers that WWE is going to have will chew this guy up and fucking spit him out.
20 lawyers.
Yeah,
one, right?
exactly. They'll fucking chew him up.
The only other thing that WWE might be at fault for is late 80s, early 90s when the ring was stiff as fuck.
Yeah.
They'll be like, well, why did you use that ring? Well, because it was easy to set up, tear down, and transport.
Yeah.
Well, I see WWE being on the hook to some degree if they were asking guys to work knowing they were hurt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If a guy was concussed, to say, hey, go out there and do this match anyways. But I imagine it was never worded in a way that, hey, you got to do this. It might have been implied, just like it was never probably straight out said, hey, you should probably get on the gas. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But at certain points in time, it was probably heavily implied that it was in your best interest to do it.
And I know that the wording they used, if somebody didn't get a push because they took time off for injuries, and someone else did, and if they brought it into question, the wording would be, well, I can count on him. I can rely on him. That's why I put him in the spotlight. That's why he's on the posters. That's why he's on the cover of the VHS, because he's reliable. If they worded it like that, he's not saying, hey, because you were hurt. He's just saying, hey, because you're reliable. And it's the same deal in any industries. If you have somebody who's calling in sick, they might be legitimately sick, but you give the other guy the promotion or whatever, you say, well, he's reliable. You don't say, oh, I didn't promote you because you have this illness that caused you to miss work. Well, you say, well, I can count on him and he's reliable, and that's perfectly legal and that's perfectly fine. And I'm sure, even back in the in the 80s and 90s, I'm sure they knew, like, hey, this is the politically correct way to word this, where you're not saying, hey, fuck you for being hurt.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, the only thing I could see making this lawsuit legitimate is if guys like Hulk Hogan, Savage's estate, all came forward and said, those guys are the guys working. If Shawn Michaels were to say, my head's all fucked up because of WWE, that would put more fucking fuel to the fire. But at the same time,
Taker or someone were to, right?
Yeah.
We spent 30 bloody years.
But at the same time, those guys are going to say, what? I worked how many years? I knew the business. I knew what I was getting into. They could either be an advocate or, but at the same time, this could open the floodgates too for independent promotions. That's the scary thing too. Right. You're a booker.
Exactly. It could really harm the industry. And another thing too, you mentioned if WWE said, hey, you need to take this chair shot to the head or you're not, you're not booked, then maybe they're responsible.
Sure.
But
yeah.
There's certain guys that would always put a hand up when a chair was slung their way because they knew to protect themselves, or other guys felt, it wasn't needed.
I'll just eat it.
Yeah. So that's personal preference at that point.
Absolutely.
There was, when we did our angle, how many times did you swing a chair at me? Countless, but
exactly.
It was my personal decision to always put a hand up because I knew there was ramifications to having my skull cracked in.
Eating a fucking enziguri, I always fucking... Yeah, I see lots of guys that don't, man. I see lots of guys that just eat that fucking enziguri to the jaw, and I'm like, you're a fucking retard, man.
I always said, it looks more real if you're putting your hands up because you're
that's what you would fucking do.
A guy's taking a swing at me, you're gonna feel like that. Right?
Oh, that's something I learned from trial and error. Like I've been hit in the head so many times and my teeth kicked out of my mouth because when I was younger I thought I was tough and no, he'll take care of me. And it's not that anyone was trying to hurt, but accidents happen, and there was times you take a kick to the face and full tilt.
You got your laces imprint on your face, and
after having an expensive dental bill, for my front tooth being kicked out, or being groggy for a week for having my head kicked in, I said I don't care if someone thinks I'm a pussy. I'm putting my hand up because I'm not paying that bill. I'm not getting paid enough on the show to justify the time off and the bills that come with it.
Well, it's like me.
Walk around a fucking haze for the next week.
My personal thing was I'd never take a powerbomb because I took a powerbomb once, but I got it fucking just jarred my head, and I said, no, I'm not taking that again because everybody's just fucking let go at the time.
Right.
No, I don't trust guys enough to do it properly because everybody wants to do the big fucking power drive.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was my thing. Like, there's guys that do it safe, but it's just I didn't want to protect my head.
And at the end of the day, regardless if there's ramifications or not, you're never physically forced to the ring and have to do it. So you have the option. And like we mentioned, when we all started wrestling, we understood rather quickly what the risks are, because when you're first learning to do it and you're going through preparation to learn how to do things for the first time, there's so much trial and error and getting fucked up on things that you learn very quickly the risk that's involved. And if you continue to move forward, you have an understanding of what you're putting on the line by doing
Oh
so.
yeah, you don't need a fucking medical degree to, like they're saying, hey, nobody ever educated me on this. You fucking know what hurts and what doesn't. You know what's damaging and what's not.
So I'm very curious to the angle, because, as we discussed it, it sounds so silly to say, hey, we're placing the blame on them. So I'm curious to what their hook is to say, no, it's more than that. This is what it is.
I'm gonna go after Don for like the 8 NHB shows he ran. Say, yeah, I got concussed. You didn't tell me the fucking dangers of being concussed.
Well, that's just it. Now, how far does this go? Are wrestling schools on the hook for guys?
Lack of,
for all the how many times you concussed doing hundreds of bumps, learning them for the first time, and being suplexed for the first time, and getting dropped on your head all those times. You're training with somebody green.
Just as new as you. Yeah.
So I'm very curious. Like Axel Rotten's estate is. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't remember Axel Rotten being under contract with the company.
I think he worked 2 matches.
Yeah, wasn't he the Santa Claus shit too?
That was Balls Mahoney.
Balls,
He was for a brief period of time, but he was a guy who had a 20-year career.
Yeah, and worked on an extremely over the top style in that in the independent promotions and in ECW before it was absorbed by WWE.
Right.
And Lord knows where else he worked. That was what was expected of him, and that's what he delivered. And for the handful of times he worked for WWE, how the hell does that hold them responsible for the damages he took?
Yeah, like Sabu's on that list. His career was very dangerous, and very little of it was in WWE. His neck being broken was in ECW. ECW's bankrupt. You're not getting a penny out of them. But how many of these guys had long careers in WCW? Are they going to go after AOL Turner next, or is that something that gets dissolved with the sale to the company? Or is that something they would still be looking for?
No, because when you purchase a company like that, there's no liens against them, they don't owe any money, you don't have to pay any of the bills they owe, that kind of shit.
So can somebody still go after them though, because they're still operating?
It'd be a lot more red tape.
Yeah.
Okay. You might be able to, but it's easier to go after someone who's up and running still.
Like, I don't want to dismiss the guys that do have, because we all probably have some kind of brain damage.
Right,
and that's one of the things that's always, people said wrestlers need some kind of health insurance or health care, because we are all going to end up crippled to some degree. And that's, like we said, a choice we made getting into it. And it is unfortunate that there isn't something for the guys to take care of them, but that's the nature of the beast, unfortunately. And hopefully that one day changes so guys are taken care of later in life. But the NFL thing to me seems different in the sense that, you're trained in the NFL to take somebody's head off.
Yeah.
Like, that's the way you're taught how to play the game. So maybe you didn't, you probably knew it was dangerous, but maybe you didn't know the extent of how dangerous with these guys colliding.
Yeah.
In wrestling, we're not trained to try to hurt somebody. In fact, we're trained to protect.
Exactly.
So if anyone's been hurt, it's not been intentional. We're not telling guys to go out there and take each other's heads off. We're saying...
With the odd exception. Maybe.
It's like the NFL, the guy would come off to the side, he's concussed. The doctor would be, oh, you're good to go back in because we're down 3 points.
Yeah.
You got more money at stake. Where the guys get injured in the ring, they get carted off in the stretcher.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is that we go out with the intent of protecting ourselves. There's no intent to hurt anybody. WWE's not sending anyone out there saying, hey, go get hurt.
Yeah.
They want you to go out there and perform to a high level, but never under a circumstance where you're getting dropped on your head intentionally. In fact, they've had times over history where they ban moves that are dangerous to avoid that.
Exactly.
Powerbomb,
power drivers.
So it's hard to say, hey, they're not having our best interests in mind, when there's been times, to protect the guys. They said, please don't do that move anymore. It's too dangerous for guys to take it.
You're going to fuck these performers up.
So if this does become a thing and it blows up, I'm curious to see what happens to their stock now that this lawsuit's happening. If that's going to be a thing. But given the circumstance, something happens and they lose, and WWE has to pay out a bunch of money. How does that change the industry? Are you not going to be able to punch in the head anymore, kick in the head, body slam?
The MMA gloves.
That would be an insane trickle down effect.
Like, how would you?
Yeah, there might be some kind of
how can
legal way to alter the contracts and have everyone sign a new, almost a different waiver of sorts.
Yeah.
But
But don't they probably do that already?
I would
right?
imagine so. Yeah, I imagine they're pretty ironclad to begin with. Like I don't think they'd go into that blindly, with their, chest exposed like that, right? So hey, come back and shove a knife through my fucking heart, but I honestly, if this lawsuit does go through for the, and I imagine likely they're seeking a fairly large settlement, it would throw a huge fucking wrench into not only their business but the entire fucking industry.
Yeah, because every company's now going to be on the hook.
Yeah.
And like I mean, if they do it to protect themselves from getting sued in the future, they might have to change the way wrestling is done completely.
Yeah.
Which
might start getting the wrestling commissions back.
They're going to start wearing headgear.
Yeah.
Speaking of commissions and regulations, I'm going to use that as a segue in here while we have time. Brock Lesnar was dinged for a doping violation after his fight with Mark Hunt over the weekend, which was created a bunch of controversy because he manhandled Mark Hunt and was very decisive in his victory. His camp is claiming that it was not steroids, it was from his inhaler for asthma that he deals with.
That's right.
What's everyone's take on this situation? Is it legitimate? Is he going to get through?
No, he'll be fine, I think, because he had, before the fight, he had 3 past tests in like 9 days before the fight.
Yeah.
They tested him 3 times and he passed all 3. So, because I guess they had such a short window with him, usually they start testing 4 months out. They didn't know he was even fighting 4 months out, so they had to kind of waive that and kind of, condense the test. Yeah, condense the testing field. And so, in 9 days before the fight, he pissed clean 3 times. So you really got to think, okay, well, is their testing system either that poor that they miss it 3 times? Does he not know how to fucking run a cycle? Or he just did it right after the, like, what the fuck's going on here?
Right.
Or like if it was, because the test was from, the results came back after the fight, but the test was from before the fight.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a performance enhancing drug. There's lots of banned drugs on the less Oxycontins. You'll flag for Oxycontins because they don't want you fighting through an injury.
Right.
They want you fighting 100% healthy. So and that's where the whole marijuana thing comes in. With Nick Diaz, or everyone said, "Oh, it's bullshit. Why is marijuana even a banned substance?" And it's because it is prescription and it is legal, but a lot of times it's prescribed as a painkiller or something to treat some sort of mental illness. And they don't want anyone mentally ill in the ring. They don't want anyone who's got injuries that aren't healed and they're masking with painkillers in the octagon. They want someone who's 100% sound mind and body in there to ensure the utmost safety of both fighters, kind of thing. And that's why you can't be in there on prescription painkillers. You don't even be on like T3s or something. I think are allowed. But yeah, OxyContin. I know fighters have been had their wins taken away and been put to no contest and fined the same way they would have been for PEDs for having Oxycontins, which they are prescribed, but you can't have those in your systems because you're masking an injury and you're doing that. So who knows what it was?
But if he passed 3 days out or 3 tests before,
9 days out.
If he passed 3 times, even if he took a 3cc shot of test the day of the event, it's not going to have any benefit to him.
It, right?
So I don't understand why it would be such a huge issue. And secondly, with him testing it, it's really bizarre to me that if it could be that and they have to do a secondary test, anyways, why information like that is released and drag someone's name through the mud when if it comes back, oh no, it was good, it was just his asthma inhaler.
Or sometimes it's something like
that's assassination of character. The damage has been done.
Fuck, I wish I could remember who it was. It might have been Sean Shirk. Someone had it where, that happened, everyone's like, I knew it. It was like a big jacked up dude. And then the second one came back clean. They said the first one, they didn't clean the fucking vial properly from whoever they had tested before him. It was a dirty fucking vial that they got pissed. It's like, man, then don't announce it until it's, until you get...
Until it's official.
And that was years ago. That was 2006, 2007, somewhere. That was 10 years ago. You think they would have corrected that error by now and said, okay, well, we'll just keep this confidential until we get the second one. We'll contact him directly, maybe perhaps contact UFC or Bellator or whatever banner he's fighting directly, and then that's it. But they alert the fucking presses, it's like, fuck you assholes.
That's, I think, inappropriate.
Yeah, totally.
So worst case, what if he does come back popping the next one, he was running whatever.
Yeah.
Does it matter? He's going to collect his big payoff anyways. He's going to pay a fine.
Yeah.
He didn't come back to UFC to start competing for championships.
He'll get a 1-year suspension. That's the suspensions are set in stone. 1 year the first time. That's it, right? There's no short. You can appeal it to get a shorter one, but they never go through. So he'll get a 1-year suspension, which there's a good chance he probably wouldn't have fought. The next year he might not. Yeah, he doesn't give a fuck.
Right, he's not. He wasn't fighting for a win-loss record.
He'll get a fine that he can easily afford, and
he'll collect his money, and there'll be no effect.
Yeah, life goes on.
So if he does get a suspension, say for a year, is that across the country or is that in commissioned states?
No, it's so fucking weird. It's very boys clubbish. Like, so it's just in that state. So it'll just be in the state of Nevada. But any major promotion, if you have a suspension in one state, just to keep in good standing in that state, they'll not use you. Like, technically, they could put on a fight card. UFC could put on a fight card in Brazil and put them on that afterwards, but they won't because they want to keep in good standing with all the athletic commissions. So they recognize suspensions across the board.
So what's stopping another company from picking up and using Brock Lesnar in Japan?
Because it'll be the same thing. That has happened with Japan, yeah. Nobody's done it domestically though, where they just kind of gone to a different state or even like, to Mexico or Canada or whatever kind of thing. It's happened in Japan. It's happened where they've gone to Russia too, and then just fought in Russia. But even that's rare because sometimes you get these companies that just have money to fucking throw around to use stupid shit like that. But for the most part, it is pretty. Everybody's pretty on the same page. We're like, okay, yeah, no, we want to make sure that we're looking like we're upholding the standards and so on and so forth, and we recognize suspensions that come through. And the same thing happens with they're not required to, but like if someone gets some kind of suspension for something in NCAA, and then they get drafted in the NFL and they still had 2 more games to serve, the NFL will be like, yeah, guys, still suspended his first 2 games.
Wow.
Just they don't have to, but they do it just to look like, hey man, we follow the rules,
Right.
So that's pretty much what everyone do.
We've got 2 minutes before our break here. Very quickly, if he does come back, testing positive again, what does it mean for WWE? Do you have a wellness policy that they say they're very strict on? If he fails this and he gets a year suspension in martial arts, does WWE have to abide by that publicly?
They'll do whatever theirs is, because they'll do like look at Billy Gunn. His was from some bodybuilding thing or whatever, right?
And they fired him.
They fired him.
So Brock Lesnar's their biggest attraction, and he's going into a main event at SummerSlam. Do they pull him from that, or do they dance around it?
They'll dance around it until immediately after. Probably.
Their statement has been that he last wrestled at WrestleMania. He's going to come back at SummerSlam, and that's the only thing that they're saying. So, kind of like washing their hands.
So it's not going to apply.
Yeah, but that's
he has a different contract, I'm sure.
He has a very different one. They can't fire. They have to give him 6 months' notice if they fire him, if they release him from his contract in WWE.
So he's set. He's fine.
Yeah.
We're going to take our first break, and we're going to come back and talk Matt Fairlane.
I go to Muscles by Myers because I trust them.
The staff is phenomenal. You come in, they're always positive, they're always happy to see you.
I walked in there not knowing a thing about supplements, and the staff there showed me everything I need to know.
I lost about 40 pounds and then put on about 10 pounds of muscle.
I've gotten stronger, I have more energy.
I go to Muscles by Myers because they offer great advice, competitive pricing, and they care about helping you achieve your goals.
If I can do it, you can do it.
CWE Canada.ca.
.123approved.ca specializes in first-time car loans and negative equity trades. Regardless of your credit past, we can help you get the financing that best suits your needs. To learn more about 123approved.ca or to see what you qualify for, call 204-444-4123 today.
CWE fans, the action and excitement of Adrenaline is only the beginning. To get the full CWE experience, check us out on YouTube. There, you can catch up on Adrenaline and classic CWE television episodes. Watch The Snake Pit with Jordan Garber, the weekly CWE Podcast, promos, our event center, and so much more. Subscribe to the CWE YouTube channel today.
That I don't have.
Zubaz.
Rooms and accommodations for CWE events provided by the Travel Lodge.
Give your body the edge in one click with musclesbymyers.com. We have sports supplements, vitamins and minerals for all lifestyles and levels of fitness. And call or email for free one-on-one guidance. Smart buyers shop at Myers and musclesbymyers.com.
How's everybody doing today? How do you become a wrestler? Yeah. The same way you become anything else. You have to go to school and work really, really, really hard. And we are back, and we are going to shift gears from UFC and WWE to Winnipeg Wrestling. And one of the longest-standing veterans of the Manitoba wrestling scene is yourself, Matt. You mentioned you broke it in 1996, a completely different ball game from 2016.
Yep.
Tell us about how you broke into the business, because it was a very interesting way, especially for the time.
Well, it was, like I said earlier, I'm not a veteran, more of a student of the local scene. In 1996, for about a year, me and my brother and a couple of buddies of ours actually were doing more of a shoot-style wrestling. So we beat the shit out of each other for like as long as we can to find out who comes out on top. And we used to wrestle in like minus 50 degrees, snowsuits outside, beating the shit out of each other.
So this was backyard wrestling before backyard wrestling was cool?
Yeah, like we used to mimic moves and stuff like that, but we were literally putting like chicken wing cross faces on each other.
Like literally
shoot holds. Like I remember I almost dislocated Ike's shoulder, right? And like I crushed the guys, and it was terrible.
You were a teenager at this time.
We were teenagers. Yeah, I was 15 when we started doing that, and then we started working out at the local gym, and we throw the judo mats on the ground. And Ike had the brilliant idea to start our own wrestling promotion, and he called it originally. He called it POC Wrestling, piece of crap. So everybody used to make fun of BSW by calling it bullshit wrestling. I was like, well, that's why I called it BSW, Body Slam Wrestling, bullshit wrestling. You know, that's kind of in his own little mind. It was funny.
So when you started running shows, were you aware of other local wrestling at the time, or was it like, we don't know wrestling, let's just run our own deal?
We had no idea except for Tony's show.
Okay.
Probably because they had TV and stuff.
Yeah, we had Farmer Vision. Like we didn't even get to see Stampede, because by the time we got around to like we've been fans since 1984, right? Like I remember watching Hulk Hogan and Mr. T show up for WrestleMania. I was 4 years old, right? And we've been fans ever since. And we finally just kind of messed around, and Ike wanted to start doing this, and we rented Tony's little shitty ring this 10x10 ring off him for $550. back in 1996, he said, well, I'll rent you, I got 2 rings. I'll rent you this one, the smaller one for $550, or the big one for $600. You know, little did we know it was 20x20. We could have twice the ring for $50 more.
So being teenagers out in Selkirk, how did you even track down Tony back then? There's no internet, there's no email
TV,
address.
You want to become a wrestler, call here.
Yeah,
you want to book a show, call here. So I called Tony, and we met up with Tony. He came down and set up the ring. We actually had our first show in East Selkirk at the rec center there. And you know, it was just basically family, friends, family, stuff like that. We had like this tournament, and Ike was the champion for some reason. He was the booker. And we were still doing
Who does that?
Yeah, we were still doing the legitimate shoot style this time. Like, we had no idea about running ropes, taking bumps, and the show went like 2.5 hours. And the last match was me and him, and I just stretched the shit out of him. But he just came off a broken collarbone, and like I threw in that chicken wing, and I wrenched on him. And we rented the ring again off. Actually, a couple months later is when we found CWE.
Right.
We went there to actually promote a show we were going to be doing.
Can you back the train up one second and tell me the conversation with Tony? 'Cause it seems bizarre to me back then when the business was a little more protected to be able to just call up a promoter and say, hey, I want to rent a ring and just do my own show. Did he not try to talk you to that?
He tried talking
or try to get you to train?
He wanted us to start training.
Okay.
And Ike explained to Tony what the deal was, what we did. And, you know, we just wanted to have the ring and kind of fuck around, right? And it was in East Selkirk, so Tony said, well, in his mind, it's probably like, this isn't going to burn anything. You know, this is
okay.
A little, there's no internet at the time, there's no anything. Yeah. Right? So we did that, and you know, that show, it wasn't even a pro wrestling match or whatever. You know, that's kind of when we started. That was our first time in the ring. And then 97 came up, and we went to a CWF show at Heather's Curling Club out in St. James. Yeah. And we went there, and we had little flyers about the show we were going to do. And Ike was giving them out to people in the audience. Not knowing, because we had no idea.
Yeah,
right?
no, how would you know, right?
And Andy Anderson and Mass Nevada came and found us, pulled us out of the crowd, and they said, well, our promoter wanted us to kick your ass, blah, 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 blah. Well, why don't you guys train with us? Okay. You know, we ended up renting the ring off them for the next show. It was a series of shows in front of like 5, 10, 15 people.
Did this cause you with Tony jumping ship to Ernie?
Yeah, probably a little bit. And we ended up causing a lot of heat with Ernie and his crew at this time, because we knew if we were going to get trained, like we knew enough about the business that if we were going to get trained, we were actually going to pay to be properly trained. If we were going to pay anybody locally to train, we were going to pay Tony to train, because.
So you always had the ambition to train and do it professionally.
Well, we were teenagers with no money. Our parents, we were very low income at the time. My dad's health and stuff like that. So we weren't expecting our parents to pay for it. Right? So, you know, and then we went to this one training center when Ernie had it off control upstairs. And he come there, and I refused to get in the ring with these guys, because it was like, you know what, I kind of had this feeling, because I didn't play sports, and I was always picked on, so I could find the bullies right away.
Yeah.
You know, I was a fat kid, all black, before it was cool to wear all black, I had long hair, you know.
Right.
And all these guys, it was like, okay, well, they were going to try taking advantage of us. You know?
Who were some of the guys that were there?
I'm trying to remember the guys that were there that time. I know Collins was there, and I always liked Collins. But I think it was Todd Bullitt and a few other guys. I think Jackie Youngblood, I think was his name back then. But there was a few other bigger guys that were training too. And Ernie comes flying in his purple jumpsuit. I don't know if you guys ever seen him wearing this stupid. He comes flying in the ring. He's hopping around. He's doing this stuff. And he comes up to me and Ike and goes, "So you guys want to start training?" And Ike looks at him and goes, "Why you? No fucking way." And he goes, "I'm not going to pay you a fucking dime." He says, "You know, we're here to rent the ring off you for our next show." And it was this October show that we were doing. Ike used to call it Halloween Massacre. And we got the ring, and this was the debacle of all debacle show. We had like nobody there. We weren't properly trained yet. Actually got my first pair of boots for the show. And
where does someone get boots in 96?
It's called a Fana Limited of Portage.
Okay.
It cost us like $280 for these
So a lot of money back
That
then.
was, yeah.
Yeah, they would like resole boots for the boys and stuff too. Yeah, they got quite a bit of business out of the boys.
Yeah, and so we got these. I got our boots, and we had this. I was doing the Celtic gimmick back then with Ike, and we were always wrestling each other. This is when we had real heat with like Brian Jewell and all of them. This is where I threatened Brian Jewell that show, was actually because we were running so late. And instead of taking us under their wings and trying to help us, they just wanted the money and go, right? They came in, laughed about it, booked the show. I think even Cheech. No, that was a couple months beforehand. I'll tell you that story later. But anyway, Alex Rain, who was a rookie at the time, was told to start taking the ring apart while we were wrestling. I were in the ring. So the under cables were loosened and stuff like that. And I go up to the top rope, and on the match, you can see I almost fall back. So I come flying out of the ring. I whip a chair over at like Broda and Jewel, and I'm yelling at him. And so me and him had heat for years.
This is on tape?
No, it wasn't on tape, but everybody that was there, they knew I was mad. Like I had Alex Rain come up to me years later and apologize for doing it. He goes, looking back, that was my trainer told me to do it. I had to do it. And me and Jewel talked years later and just said, I was a young kid, and he says, shouldn't have done it, but whatever. It was one of those, I guess, things that.
Did it become physical?
Almost. Yeah. I was ready to go, and I think he had Caveman Broda holding me back.
And you're still a teenager.
I was only 17 at the time, yeah.
And ready to go.
I was ready. I was a hothead.
Caveman Broda was probably 35 at the time and looked 70.
Yeah. I was a hothead back then, but we had to laugh because they're all hot because the show before was during the flood of the century, and Ernie had this big idea where he's only going to charge us 25% of the gate for all the wrestlers, the ring, and everything like that. So we had 17 people at the show. And, bands came up to us for the PO, and I think it was like $37. So we got a ring, we got Andy Anderson, Massive Edit, Chi Cruz, all these like guys.
Deal.
Yeah, for like $37. Yeah. And because that was the deal. Like, we're sticking to the deal. We're not giving you guys anything extra. That was you talked to Ernie.
That was a stupid deal on Ernie.
Oh fuck, that was that. And Ernie said he was going to sue us and blah blah blah. And
of course.
Yeah. So after
Did you have heat with the boys on the show for that?
They understood. Like we said, sorry, this is what we dealt with Ernie. We're young. We're sticking to our guns, right? And Vance and Andy and all them liked us. Like Steve Stryker, they all when they started doing that power tour, they wanted us to come over and train with them and be part of their show. But like, we had a lot of fellow guys and brothers in the business that wanted to take us under the wing, but a lot of the promoters at the time wouldn't let it happen. Like Ernie wanted to charge us, and all this other stuff. We were kind of the backyard, backdoor guys. That came.
You were like Mark Merrick before Mark Merrick.
Yeah, but we actually had untapped talent. Like Mark Merrick, how long he's been in the business? 10 years?
2003 he started coming around.
Yeah, like the kid should learn how to fucking bump. Okay, like I even offered to train him for free, and he turned it down. And I wasn't gonna stretch him or anything, but at the same time I learned how not to get into the business. There's a lot of heat there, and we ended up buying a ring off of Tony. It was actually off of Puppy Dog through Tony for 4 posts and some shitty cables. $2,500.
Oh my god!
Got stretched royally for this. No canvas, no wood, no ropes, no nothing.
Motherfucker, eh?
And I phoned Tony and I'm yelling at him. He goes, well, I got a guy. He knows how to put together the ring. Call him up. He'll charge you guys a couple bucks to kind of piece together this ring because it was a wood plank ring.
Yeah.
Kelly Russell. So I phoned Kelly and Kelly says it's $1,000. I was a hothead back then. I fucking flew off the handle. I called him a piece of shit and fucking asshole. Blah blah blah. I phoned Tony. I reamed him out. I'm sorry, guys. And he kind of came around. Kelly said you'll never work anywhere and stuff like that. And I legitimately Tony used to book me and Ike after he started training us, but we weren't welcome on the crew. Ike was ripped all the time. Me and Ike only worked each other because Ike didn't feel comfortable working anybody else. It kind of got to that point where we were kind of sick. We were like the Londons before the Londons. But I wanted to work other people, but Ike didn't feel comfortable working anybody. Like even Axe, when he broke in, he was, told to rib us that he was going to kill us in this match in Pine Falls or whatever. And sure enough, I went out there and I worked with Axe. Axe worked with me, and we had a good little chemistry there. And, but I just didn't trust anybody. And then we started working with UTW at the time. No, River City in '99.
Yeah.
And Bumpers Bar.
And at this point, you were training with Tony?
We already trained with Tony and actually Terry Brown.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, we paid $20 a lesson. It was in this little shitty garage shack thing. Phillips, right?
And what year did you actually
98.
get? 98, okay.
Yeah, we spent the summer of '98. We went up to the city, training like plus 30, so in the fucking shop it was like plus 80.
Like it is here today.
Yeah, like 10 by 10 ring, and you've wrestled me, I sweat like a son of a bitch. And wrestling that, I think I almost broke my neck a couple times, because I was sliding everywhere. But we started taking bookings with Wayne. Actually, Wayne started promoting or saying we were on matches for shows that never happened.
Yeah.
So we gave him shit for that at one point. And
private shows.
Yeah, private shows. And we still hadn't worked for Ernie, and we started working for RCW at Bumpers. And this is when they had that stupid ring with like 3 springs in it.
Yeah.
That thing was brutal. You run across the ring, you're almost flying over the ropes, because ropes came down to here. And me and Ike wrestled this match, and we were in front of like Hell's Angels. It was a whirlwind brawl, and the guys just fucking loved it. But the guys in the back thought we were nuts, because there was like chairs everywhere, fucking Northern Lights ball on chairs on the dance floor. It was like we were doing before CWF was doing the hardcore. Me and Ike were doing that shit, but like, we had the Texas death matches and bloodbaths everywhere.
How were you received in the RCW locker room? Because that was a green crew at the time.
It was a green crew that had a lot of ego to at the time.
Okay. So I don't remember seeing you on any of the Chalmers shows as a kid.
It was just before that.
Yeah,
okay.
I think I worked like 2 Chalmers shows, and that was it.
You guys came back and did the Rumble, I think, too.
Yeah,
that was the first time I had met you, so I must have just missed you.
Yeah, we worked with CWF back in Chalmers in like '97, early '98, or no, just '97, and then I worked with RCW in Chalmers, and then our last match for RCW, Ike had a heat with Knight for some reason. I still don't know. Knight was the booker, and we were booked against Ryan Price and Rob Stark. Debacle of the match. Ryan Price, I think, was like 16, 17, working in the bar, and Knight booked us against these 2 green guys to lose. And Ike's like, what the fuck? We're coming here to make your guys look good, and it was just this huge blow up. And we went in there, me and Ike, when we were trained by Tony and Kerry, we were taught to snug, we were tight, hit but don't hit, And these guys were taught to, the loose little fucking headlocks and stuff like that. So when we were wrestling these guys, they thought we were shooting on them, but we weren't. And
which is ironic now, because that's Rob Stardom talking.
Exactly. And we were wrestling this match, and Rob freaks out, and I guess the guy thought Price thought I was shooting on him, and I wasn't. And Rob comes in and he throws me in a shoot Boston crab. So I yelled at Ike, he's shooting on me, and Ike comes in and fucking starts beating the shit out of him. And Rob turns it over in the corner and starts punching him, this weak little like this. In the corner goes, you're ruining the match, So Ike just jobbed out, took the shittiest fucking heart attack you'll ever see. And we went in the back and told everybody to go fuck themselves.
We're making a lot of friends.
Oh yeah, we had heat with everybody for the longest time. I couldn't get booked for life of me for the longest time. That's why I started BSW again. We worked UTW. That's where I met you.
Yeah.
And that was the only place we could get booked.
So that's how you ended up there.
Mm-hmm. And
it's really bizarre, because if someone who met you now, you're so quiet and down to earth, it's amazing to sit back and listen to some of these stories.
No, I was a son of a bitch back then. But UTW, my first match with UTW, John gave us the book. We booked our matches and stuff like that. And I think that was Kenny Omega, one of Kenny Omega's first matches against Ryan Price. I got it somewhere on tape too.
Probably worth some money to somebody now.
Oh, probably. He probably fucking paid me not to put it up. But anyway, we worked that show, and John wasn't going to pay us. He's like, I don't have any money, and we were guaranteed $70 to do it each. And we told him, you go to the ATM and get your fucking money up. He went and got our money and came and paid us. because we weren't putting up with it right. And we had some shitty matches with UTW, and like their fucking basement training center, their other training center they had, and
that's where I first met you.
Yeah.
Like I was still helping, like carrying gimmicks to the back,
you were,
and like reffing for Wayne.
Yeah.
And he said he was starting a wrestling school, and he's
Yeah.
like, "Come on down." He was like scouting backyard wrestlers and training them to be wrestlers. And that's where I first got in the ring to train for the first time. I remember you were there, and Ike was there. I think Jay Lanza, young Jay Lanza was there. Yeah. How did you come across John? Is that through his working relationship with Ernie?
He gave me like a call out of nowhere. He showed up and started talking. He took us out for coffee at Smitty's in Salt Creek there and started talking to us, and that's where we came up with, okay, we'll work with you. You know, he's going to start with some young guys, and we're like, well, we did just get trained from Tony. We're not great trainers, but we'll help you out, you know, because we need a place to go. We're not. Ike didn't want to start paying for shows again because they weren't drawing anybody. You know, we used to have a TV deal in Salt Creek too. I watched some of those other week. They're just debacles. Anyway, but we went with UTW and was wrestling like Jamal Jones. And
Jamal.
I had a strap match against him where I came off the top rope with a drop kick and he fucking hooked my feet when he bumped. Ooh. And I kissed the fucking ground like it went in like a dart. Ooh. And you know, I had some shitty matches there. Then that was the Battle Royal at my rendezvous for him. Where I got pushed off the top rope, like shoot double-handed on the ass by Draven. Remember Draven?
Yeah, not Michael Draven.
No. So just Draven. I told him what I wanted to do was do the fucking hot shot onto the fucking railing. You know, and fucking just grab me and I'll fucking stand like this and push me off, right? Well, I gave him a frog splash. I used to have really good frog splash back then, and I fucking stiffed him on it a little bit. And because he fucking was 3/4 across the ring, like it's slammed him in the center. I went up, did the frog splash. Fucker rolls away. So I'm like, okay, well now I gotta fucking really hop. And so I go up to the top rope and he fucking double hands me. Boom. Nothing, I couldn't grab onto anything. I hit the fucking concrete. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't walk. My hand looked like a piece of raw meat because I just whacked that floor so hard. And, you know, after that show, I actually took my first Northern Death tour.
Okay.
And that's where I really started picking things up. I started learning because I was in rings with guys that weren't from Providence. Like there was guys like Lincoln Steen, one of my good friends, Matt Richards, who was with Stampede for the longest time. You know, all these Scott Savage, you know, some of these Steve Cox, you know. So guys, do you want to learn from some guys you don't? Right? Steve was always a good guy too, but I never wanted to get chopped from him. But you know, I started picking things up. I started working actually different matches, and you know, I was like, you know, yeah, I'm actually pretty good at this. You know, I'm not working the same people all the time. I'm not working these green guys. I can actually work a match. You know, and I got back from that, and I started training John Cutler, Chris Rain, Sean Houston, Mike Lightning, all these guys to restart BSW. And this was 2002, and sure enough, you know, everybody hated the fact that I was running BSW again. And my first match, first show was a steel cage match, and you know, we had 260 people there. You know, and it was everybody paid. There was not a comp in the house. Next show, we drew 275 people in November. December, I had a ladder match with Sean Houston. We fucking sold the place out. You know, in January, 2 weeks after Christmas, right? Which is always a hard time to draw. Because nobody has money, right? And then the February show, we had a lineup all the way around the block, minus 50 into the show. You know, and then PCW started, you know, taking John Cutler, Chris Rain, and Houston, and saying that they were their guys. You know, not giving me any credit. And I was starting to get hot again. I was like, fuck you guys, you know? And then that's when the wrestling audit or whatever the hell it came out with Marty Goldstein and all them guys, and Ringmasters was going to start up. And the shows are still going good, and had a couple shit matches, whatever, but I only had 5 matches per show. Had a nice ramp, lighting, smoke, ring lighting, everything, like it was an actual show. And then I got a call from Angus McFarlane, and he's like, you know, we're going to start up Ringmasters. I think this is in like August, July or August. And he goes, you know, we want to use your guys, you know, but we don't want you to run BSW anymore. We don't think you're a trainer. I'm like, so you're going to use John Cutler, you're going to use Chris Rain, you're going to use Mike Lightning, and Trent Hurst, who was at the time too. But I'm not a qualified trainer. You know, my guys aren't worth anything. You know, you want me to shut down my show so you can take over it. So I was pretty hot at that point, so I fucking shut everything down. And I quit, and then I did a bar show in Arborg, paid for a bar show. It was a wild fucking night that I'm not going to talk about. But, you know, I ran one more show, and I let Sean Houston book a bunch of it, and it became a PCW show. And I was like, that's it, I'm done. There was like 20-minute promos here, there was 5-minute promos there. After every match, there was a promo. Before every match, and I was like, no, that's not what PSW is. That's what I was booking was a family show where people can come, get entertained, not get bored to death by people talking. And they were all mad that I wasn't booking anymore, so they started out Power Slam wrestling.
That's right.
Power Slam Entertainment. They were all hot. I think Madison gave me shit because I wouldn't let them use Body Slam wrestling and stuff like that. I'm like, well, they weren't paying the bill. I was paying the bill. I was giving guys decent POs back then too. I was giving guys like $40 PO. I even gave Mike Hammer and Nate Hardy their first PO. You know?
What was the secret to you drawing out there? Because no one's ever been able to get a good paid house in Selkirk.
No blood, no shitty wrestling. Like when I won't even really touch on Ringmaster history because I was only there for like a blink of an eye for what they were, right? But when I came back in 2008 with Rob, like when he first started, I wasn't going to come back, and then I think he finally convinced me because I had some injuries and stuff like that. I also have something called fibromyalgia. It's a chronic disease that's like rheumatoid arthritis without the disfiguration, but it's like every day it feels like I have the flu. Like the whole body aches like that. So it comes and goes in like waves where it's, you know, pretty bad. But when Rob started, and then when you started, you know, I was feeling pretty good. I was working a lot at the time, and with Rob's shows, he started out really good, but he was starting to kill it with like the 30-second matches before the show, and you know,
I was like those like little pre-show matches he was taping.
Dark matches.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I don't want to like my best part of wrestling locally was 2008 to 2016. Really, like for what I do now, like the spot shows here and there. You know, that's when Matt Fairlane was, you know, had a name in business, like where I, you know, you put my name on a poster in Selkirk or north of Winnipeg, people would show up, right? Like I was a decent draw. Like I wasn't putting asses in the seats, like, you know, if you had a name, but you know, it was. I had the best quote I ever was told is I had the Jerry Lawler of Memphis babyface draw in Selkirk.
Yeah, you were huge over there.
And it was like I didn't sell a fucking ticket. Like my family came, but there was like 6, 7, 8 of them. I never sold one ticket. Like that's like everybody thought it was my friends and family there. You know, maybe 8 people showed up. You know, that's where I took credit that, you know, yeah, I was a decent draw at that, I guess. But then when Rob started booking all these shitty matches and bloodfests before the kids could actually see Matt Fairlane again, you know, and I was on last when the crowd all left, that's when I started really getting mad about where SPW was going.
Did you ever have a chat with him about that?
Yeah, I did. And I told him you can't have these bloody gore fests that he was having. You can't have, you know, Sidney Manson, who, you know, for the life of me, you know, I don't know why he got booked, but
he kind of had a strange philosophy with the way he would book, and he would have 100 guys that he didn't have to pay, and I always thought it was a model that wasn't going to last, and I kind of voiced that to him as well.
Yeah, you did that a lot. I heard that.
It's you know, it's in theory it's a great, you're making this money at the door because you're not having to pay anybody, but once people pay to see the quality that isn't there, people aren't stupid.
No, and that's why it was hard for you to draw when you started coming to Selkirk.
Yeah, we were getting great shows there, but nobody wanted to put their money down because they'd seen bad wrestling for so long, and after so long, people wouldn't show up even if the tickets were free because they knew what they were going to get.
Yeah, they were worried. Like, I remember, I think the last SPW show I worked where I knocked that ref out.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, like that was 2012, and I was standing on the back and I was just getting angrier and angrier through the show. Like I kept seeing people leave. And I was like, you know, this is terrible. And you know, I had to wrestle Sombra that night, and Sombra was a little less than, you know, sober. And I got mad at him, so I was like, I just turned heel in SPW at the time, so I just literally shit-kicked Sombra for 8 minutes. And I felt bad about it, but I was so mad. Like the asshole came back out, right? And you know, the ref fucked the finish. He did the 1, 2, and did this. I'm like, and you can hear me in the fucking count it, you know. I got up and I grabbed him and I just went bam, and his glasses went like 5 rows in. And he was on the ground, and I was like, you fucking piece of shit, and I kicked him, and then fucking Matthew Gunderson came out and I fucking hit him, and I was done with that shit. I was done with that spaghetti at that point.
We have 2 minutes left before we're going to run out of tape. So before we do, first and foremost, thank you for joining the program.
Thanks,
we
man.
have to get you back on because we have a lot more to talk about. So keep me up to date with your schedule. Before we run out of here, 2 minutes time. Will Matt Fairlane be back in the wrestling ring again? You pop up once in a while for special appearances. Will we see another run out of you?
Another run would have to be special circumstances. Near the end of the Matt Fairlane and CWE, I wasn't quite happy with where I was seeing him going, and my body just wasn't there. Like I wanted a special, like, not really a goodbye swan song, but something worthwhile to put my teeth into.
Of course.
That's, you know, gonna be like not just a spot match. You know, like, that's why I keep asking, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, I just want to make sure it's, you know, it's worth my time to put the boots on and get in the ring, because I want to have. I always want to have a good program. Like our program was one of my favorites, you know. But
you want to have fun.
Yeah, and you know, when I beat you for the belt, I ended up getting injured, and my fucking liver was a little shot that day.
That's kind of after you took your time off. Was after that run with the title, when you kind of.
I was banged up by then.
Yeah.
Like our match at the 4th anniversary.
We got 60 seconds.
Actually, our match at the 4th anniversary is when my body just went.
Yeah.
When you suplexed me on the floor, I couldn't feel my ass.
Wow.
Like everything, I ended up herniating some discs in my lower back and stuff like that. And then I had wrestling Royce, and what I thought was a shit match, and everybody said, "Well, it was okay," you know. But I was just like, my back just was never good. And actually, I put it out in 2014, and that's when I gained a little weight back. So.
Yeah, I was really proud of that match we had.
Yeah.
That was a great match we had, and then you were really rocking as a top heel for the company, and you were gone shortly after, unfortunately. So we never really got to capitalize on what was, I think, your best work in your career. Like, from what I seen at that point, just you were carrying the shows as champion and tearing it up, and we just never got to fully capitalize. 20 seconds, so we're gonna say goodbye. Keep me posted on your schedule. We're gonna get you back here, and we're gonna talk about this Steel Town Pro Wrestling run and the CWE run.
Sounds good.
We're back next week with the Mecca Shea Madison. Make sure to tune in.